Hello and welcome back to Flight Sim World, and thank you very much for joining me in this video. Today we're going to be flying out of Chicago O'Hare Airport, as you can see, on a very wide runway. O'Hare Airport in Chicago on runway 10 right, and we're not going to be doing a tour of Chicago or anything like that. Well, I suppose I will be flying around Chicago and the Lake Michigan area. I want to explore this area because this is a series I do in Transport Fever, and I want to see you know, how far does Chicago expand in each way, up towards Wisconsin, down towards Indiana, and you know, across Illinois, and that area going towards Michigan, and that whole area. I just want to explore a little bit as to, you know, what it's like then. You can see there's the shores of Lake Michigan right there. It expands a little bit further out. For some reason you can't really see it at that range, but there's the shores all the way over there. So we'll probably fly straight out and then fly around, come back around. We'll do a few things, see if we can see a few landmarks of Chicago, stuff like that. But this video is not about that. In this video we're going to be talking about Flight Sim World and 2017. What has 2017 brought to Flight Sim World? You know, I'll be mentioning what DLC came out. I'll give you a quick thoughts on what I did and didn't like about the DLC, what I did and didn't like about the title. We'll talk about the TrueSKY update that happened. Basically covering all the videos I made before, the videos that I've made before in Flight Sim World, and we'll just be having a look. Do we need surface de-ice? I mean, it looks pretty cold here. Let's get these things going. Pitot heat, that blower on low should be fine. Cabin heat, yeah, sure. 200 seems fine for me. Again, that doesn't work. We're not going to be doing too much by the book here. Get the flaps down one. Anything else we need to really look at? No, let's get some lights running. Hang on a minute, are these lights on? That's on, that's on. I suppose that's right. Let's do that. Don't know what that does. Let's have a quick look outside. No, I think I switched all the lights off now by mistake. Yeah, those are lights on. Okay. Fantastic. No, I hate the dome lights on these. I don't know why. There's something about those dome lights I do not like. That probably can switch off. I think that's about right. Okay, we can take off and then we'll be good to go. I did just attempt to get head tracking running on this. Unfortunately, that did not work out so well. But you know, I did try, and we'll have a look. The head tracking actually worked. Let's get rid of that. It actually worked as head tracking, but for some reason it didn't like it. Right, let's see if we can do this. And so we're going to take off, and like I said, once we're in the air, we're just going to have a nice little bit of a chin wag. We'll talk a bit about what's happened. You know, what happened in 2017 with Flight Sim World. Where did it go right? Where has it gone wrong? Where does it need to go in 2018? Right. Let's do that. I think we'll take off at around 75 knots. Seems good. There we go. Nice and easy. Positive rate. Gear up. Alright. And we'll take the flaps in right now. That was a pretty nice smooth takeoff. One of the smoother takeoffs I've done in a Malibu. The torque pull on this is quite significant. It really is. So I've already got a bit of rudder correction going on here, just to ensure that I stay on the course that I wish to stay on. Let's climb ourselves up to, should go maybe, I'm thinking 2,000 feet. We don't want to go too high up in today's video. Let's have a nice look over here. No, that's not what I want to see. That's something what ooh, that's pretty. That's quite pretty. See if we can get a different view. Not that one. No, I meant there. There we go. Alright. That could be a thumbnail, I think. I think that could look quite nice as a thumbnail. Sure, should we loop back into the city first, or... Well, I suppose the city is really over where... Yeah, I was going to say there's the main part of the city. There's downtown Chicago. So let's loop over downtown Chicago. I think that's quite a good idea. we're where we need to be. 2,000 feet. I'll probably settle in at 2,500 quite nicely. So we're just going to trim and settle for 2,500 feet or thereabouts. We'll reduce the power as well. Don't want to accelerate too fast. I might actually use the autopilot on this as well. I don't really know. We'll see. We'll see if the autopilot is a good idea to use or not. But yes, Flight Simulator, Flight Sim World 2017 in review. So what happened? Well, we've had 15 community updates, so that's pretty good going. And the community updates did manage to give ourselves a whole bunch of stuff. We managed to go from basic stuff, which was avionics working a little bit better, all the way through to TrueSKY. So you can see we've got TrueSKY in use over here. We are waiting on a TrueSKY update, but I believe it's the developers of TrueSKY are taking their time on that, which is, you know, it's nothing to be laughed about or anything. They want to get a good job, and TrueSKY, they're very, very good at what they do, and you can see how nice TrueSKY looks with the volumetric clouds. So you can actually see that we can in fact, you know what, let's actually climb a little bit higher and let's fly through this cloud ahead of us. Really give a good demonstration of TrueSKY over here. So let's get ourselves climbing a little bit more, and we're going to climb or fly through this cloud, and you're going to see the issues currently with TrueSKY and the issues that we don't have. So the fact that we've got volumetric clouds, which means we can fly through them, that was weird. All my lights came on. I'm going to talk about that. I will talk about that. This actually looks a lot nicer. But as we fly through this cloud, you're going to see exactly what TrueSKY brought. So we had the whole new weather effects. We had, at the moment, it's called advanced weather. We can go back to the simple weather, but it's not completely there yet. We don't have dynamic weather yet, so that's something that I'm hoping that comes very, very soon. It's very, very important. I think dynamic weather is incredibly important for a sim. I think it's great fun to fly in, and it really gives you the idea of flying properly in a sim. But now you can see, as we're getting into this cloud, you can see how it's volumetric and things fade out properly. But you might just be able to see there where I'm indicating with my mouse as I climb. I'm actually dropping myself out the cloud on purpose, and you can see here everything seems to have a really weird outline, especially the trees. You can just see, especially the trees seem to have a very weird outline. So that's something that Flight Sim World needs to work on, and that's something that I hope TrueSKY are working on. Maybe it's a combination of the two that needs to have that sort of system or that sort of setup fixed. Let's actually climb out this cloud as quickly as we can. It was covering my view of downtown Chicago. Hopefully, there we go. It looks like we're exiting the cloud now. But you can see at the sky level, you can see exactly how good that is and how it does look really, really nice. So TrueSKY is one of the best things I've seen going on, and of course you can see with the sky, I've chosen dusk on purpose. You know, there's a reason I've chosen this type of setup. It's because I want to show you obviously lights on the ground. You can see traffic lights down there. You can see cars waiting in traffic, it seems, even though I've set up the traffic not to be too intense. But you can see cars waiting in traffic, and things do generally look pretty good. So here we go, we're flying over downtown Chicago now. That's a very reasonable, I think we're in a pretty trimmed condition at this moment in time. So I'm quite happy about that. We're not losing or gaining too much height at 3,000 feet. I did want 2,000, but that's okay. You can see down there we've got the traffic. That looks very much like old flight simulators. Nothing's really changed in that sense. What has changed is, if you look at the aircraft, one of the big changes that came in the community update not too long ago was PBR Shader 2. So PBR Shader 2.0 gives you much more realistic shading on an aircraft. So if we have a look outside again, you can see that the aircraft looks incredibly realistic, and that's something that I'm very, very impressed with. That's a little bit odd. There's another TrueSKY bug. That's a little bit odd. I don't think the sun should be doing that. But it does give a very, very realistic look to the aircraft, and that's really, really nice. The problem is that at this moment in time, PBR is not on anything else. That is Lake Michigan. That's not an ocean. For people who don't really see the lakes and see how big they are, that is Lake Michigan. You can't actually see, well, I think you can see over to the other side, but not all too well. Not all too well. What I'm going to do is, at this point in time, I'm actually going to turn to head north. no, without climbing. This aircraft has a tendency to want to climb very, very quickly when you turn, when you bank the aircraft. But yeah, so we had that. You can actually see the other side of the lake, but just about. It's very, very difficult to see the other side of the lake. It's almost like the English Channel. That's how big it is. It's very, very wide. So let's get ourselves turned in this direction. Other things that came along, of course, was some of those were a little bit controversial. There were some of them that came along. DLC. We had the release of the Piper Arrow 3 by Just Flight, which I have to admit is a very, very good aircraft. If you haven't seen my review on that, please do go check back on the channel and you will see my reviews on that Piper. It's a very, very good aircraft. Let's get this down as well. It's difficult to get. I need something that's going to work better on that. But anyway, the Piper Arrow 3 is a fantastic aircraft. I really, really do like the way the aircraft works. I like the dynamics of the aircraft. I've been using it heavily in my advanced flight tutorial series, so if you want to know more about flying, you can go check that out. But it did come with some controversy about an early access product, which Flight Sim World very much is, and having DLC being released for it very, very early. So there was that Dovetail Games had to contend with. Now, at the start, I was quite okay with this because I was thinking, yes, okay, maybe it's not the best of moves, but it's all right because they were using it to. They were using it to basically develop the SDK. Now, the SDK came out a couple of weeks ago, or just over a week ago, is when the SDK came out, which is actually really, really good. I think it was 2 weeks ago, actually, from where I'm looking. Look at the airport just there. The reason I know a lot about the SDK and why I'm quite happy about this SDK coming out was because I think it's really, really important to have an SDK to allow other manufacturers and people to develop their own products and put them in the sim without having to, without having to work directly with Dovetail at all times. So I think that's really, really important. But with the SDK, there was another bit of controversy, which was the other DLCs that came out. So everyone liked the Piper Arrow, or generally the Piper Arrow was fairly well liked. I liked it. Yes, I think it's maybe a little bit on the expensive side, but I quite liked the actual Arrow. I think it was well done. It had all the PBR shaders, everything worked inside, a few bugs here and there, but everything generally worked inside. The one I really, really liked was the P40, or is it the P40? Yeah, the P40D? No, the P40D. The P40F. The P40F, that's what it was called. The P40F, that was the Kitty Hawk, or I think, do you call it the Warhawk? In America, it was the Curtiss Warhawk. That is one fantastic, fantastic bit of kit. I have not seen a kit that is that good, honestly. I am not a huge fan of DLC aircraft in an early access stage. Let me get that out there straight away. I'm not a huge fan of it whatsoever, but when I flew that aircraft, that P40, I just thought, wow, if that's the quality of all the DLC that's going to be coming out, this is going to be incredibly, incredibly popular. Unfortunately, there were other DLCs that came out that weren't so popular. For example, there was a mission pack that you had to pay for. A lot of people thought, why are they doing this? Now, Flight Sim World or Dovetail Games did explain that that's a completely separate team, and they wanted to, again, they were working together to expand the SDK and to understand what they wanted developed and how they wanted things developed. This looks, I'll be honest, this looks really nice. Dusk in Flight Sim World, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Quite impressed, actually. Very, very nice. But anyway, so there was that, and a lot of people were a little bit concerned about that and thinking, well, hang on a minute, why are you doing this? What's the whole idea of getting these DLCs, these sorts of DLCs running? Nobody really wants them. And yes, okay, I can understand that, and I myself was in that group thinking, is there really any use for these? And I felt that they were a little bit overpriced, and I felt that it really wasn't a direction that Flight Sim World maybe wanted to go in terms of certain DLC. Then there was the other DLC, the Moving Map DLC and the View and Slew, where I found the View and Slew absolutely useless. I'm going to be honest there, I found it absolutely useless. The Moving Map I found uses for, but I found that the implementation wasn't great on it, and that was really what was holding it back, a really poor poor implementation of the product was what was holding it back. So in that sense, they made mistakes. I think Flight Sim World have made a few mistakes in 2017, as well as had a few good things. So they've had a couple of good DLC and a couple of bad DLC, which is I suppose that everyone's got their own opinion on what was good, what was bad. Everyone's got their own opinion on whether it was a good idea to have DLC or not in the first place. And, you know, I still think it wasn't the best of ideas. I do understand why they did it, but I still think it wasn't the best of ideas to have DLCs. But, you know, there we go. That's just that. That's how Flight Sim World wanted to do it. Should we loop around this way? So, let's take a loop around this way. Yeah, this aircraft is very... Whoa. See, now this is another issue. I have been told that this issue is to do with the dynamic weather, or the weather engine not quite being right yet. So you can see how everything's gone a little bit weird. I've got no wind set up in this. There's no wind whatsoever, but something's just not running all too correctly here as we fly around. So this is something that I think needs to be worked on, and I hope that this is something they're prioritizing. This weather with TrueSKY and the whole weather engine, because we don't want to be flying in conditions like this where it really breaks the immersion. At first I thought it was just extreme turbulence, but it really isn't extreme turbulence. It's just problems. It's just problems and a few bugs. That being said, we can move on to some of the other things that were or did happen in 2017. We got the free DLC with the Kahului Air. Kahului? I think it's Kahului. Air. That was a free DLC. I really welcomed that. The reason I welcomed that was because, one, it was free, and everyone likes free stuff, and I think they did a good thing there. But two, it showed a story setup that you could do, and I hope that there's other people that do story setups in that exact way, where you can run a story in that sort of style. You saw avionics were tuned in for you. There was help going along, people were talking, there was a pilot, you were the co-pilot originally, then you had another co-pilot who handled a lot of things for you, and it was nice and story driven. I quite liked the way that was done. I also liked the fact that in that we managed to see our first jet. We saw a jet take off, Air France Airbus A320 I believe, and I think that the first jet that's going to be in Flight Sim World is going to be an Air France Airbus A320. Now, two things to point out there. One, it was a jet, which is great. I can't fly A320s. I have never flown an A320 before. I'm not an Airbus sort of person. Yeah, I might actually try and land it over there. That kind of looks like a nice place to land. I'm not an Airbus sort of person, so I've never flown an A320. That's one thing. But we had an A320 shown up in the sim, and you saw it take off, and I thought that was really great to see. It shows that there is something that's going to happen. There's definitely something that is going to happen in Flight Sim World regarding jets, and I hope that it's in the first quarter of 2018. It's going to be really great. The second thing that was really important was that it was Air France. That means that they managed to get an official license. I think this is something that I think X-Plane has got it for some aircraft. I'm sure I've seen a KLM aircraft in default X-Plane 11. May have seen a few others. Flight Simulator never had officially licensed aircraft. And as far as I can remember, they never had officially licensed aircraft, which means aircraft, I mean airliners, which means that Flight Sim World may be the first on the ESP platform, because I don't think Prepared has it either. Don't quote me on that, but it might be the first on the ESP platforms that actually has licensed airliners. And that's going to be really important, because I think that's going to bring in a whole new set of immersion. People are not going to have to download liveries. It's going to open up a lot to the likes of virtual airliners. I think virtual airliners are going to enjoy that sort of setup. I think virtual airliners are going to be really quite happy with how that ends up. So that is I think that's really good. I think it's really well done. I think that having an official airline in there is a big deal. I really do think it's a big deal. It may be a small detail, but I think it's a big deal for Flight Sim World. So we had that happen as well. What else did we have happen? I'm trying to think back. Obviously we had the whole new weather systems. We had the new shaders come out, which I talked about. We had the DLCs That was something that we had to be concerned about. They did a number of updates on things like sounds. They did a number of updates on graphics. They did a number of updates on functionality of aircraft. So that's quite important. I'm quite pleased that they did all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that I have to say that I was quite happy about is that they continued to work on it. They didn't just start it off and then just leave it. That's kind of important. So the fact that they continued to do that is a big deal to me. Right, I'm going to actually prepare myself for a landing here. So I think that's really, really important that they did that, because if they hadn't, then it would have been, I think it would have been a bit of a problem, because people would have said, oh look, they've started it off and they're not doing anything at all. I think, was it fortnightly? They did fortnightly updates. So if you think about it, 15 fortnightly updates. Was it fortnightly or was it weekly? I think it may have been fortnightly, but 15 fortnightly updates mean 30 weeks of work. And I do know where they're going. They've got the SDK released. We're going to see a lot more, hopefully, coming very, very soon to Flight Sim World. I can see where they're going on this. Where I think they need to go for 2018 is first get this dynamic weather sorted. Dynamic weather, and the one biggest thing I have, dynamic lights, and now to mention these panels. These panels switch on and off at will. I can't switch them on and off, and that's really, really annoying, because it means, for me, I feel like I don't have control of the aircraft anymore at that point in time, at least in that one aspect, and I don't like that. I do not like not having control of the aircraft. I think that's it's something that reduces someone's immersion in this. I want to be able to switch those panel lights off right now if I wanted to, and I don't want them to switch off at will. This is the same problem with the navigation lights, with the panel lights in other aircraft, including DLC aircraft. It has the same issue. So, you know, I'm not too pleased about that. We're going into the caution zone. I'm actually going to reduce power now as we do that. So now we can get ourselves descending and slowing down at the same time. Now, I don't think I'm quite lined up with a runway here, but that's okay. You know what, I must admit, Chicago looks pretty good. I want to see better pop-in over here. As you can see where the lights pop in, I think that there is an opportunity here to really improve upon that. There's a massive opportunity, I think, to improve upon that, because it's not that we've got an old system now. We're not running on old systems. We're coming into 2018. There's a lot of powerful systems out there. I think Prepared's managed to really work on it. I think that needs to happen. The shader, the shader 2, or whatever we call it, 2.0, needs to be applied across everything. I still think they need to do texture updates. I think texture updates is a big thing in Flight Sim World. I wouldn't say that it's the most important thing, but I think it's really required, because as we come into land, you're going to see that the textures get a little bit weird. They do get a little bit weird. I know I'm coming in low, and it's just because I don't have this on the ILS, so I need to be able to see where I'm flying. That's why I'm actually bringing the aircraft down. There we go. Okay, now I can see exactly where we're flying, and amazingly, that looks... See, now when you look at it like that, I think that looks fantastic. And it just shows where Flight Sim World are going. That looks better than Flight Simulator 10, even with mods. So that is something that looks great. But then there are things that break the immersion. For example, you know, in the distance, maybe we could have a better light setup in the distance. Not so much, you know, you don't have to do everything in the most perfect way possible, but I think it would be really, really good. Let's get that gear down now. I should slow us down a little bit. But look at that. I mean, the airport looks really, really nice over here as we come into land. And I think that Flight Sim World really can improve in 2018. I would like to see the jets, as I said, but first and foremost, dynamic lighting, so that we can actually have lights on the runway. You're going to see my landing light's not going to be doing anything on the runway, so that is something I would really, really like to see. Let's get ourselves lined up properly here. Oh, that could be a thumbnail right there. That really looks superb, and that's something I think Flight Sim World are doing a lot better on now than they have before. But like I said, dynamic lighting, I need to see weather. I think this should all come in the first quarter. Dynamic lighting, dynamic weather, the first jet. I think that would be really, really nice. I want to see less in the way of DLC from no, now you see that's a little bit tricky. DLC, that one's a little bit tricky to really think about. It's not that I want to see less in the way of DLC, because obviously flight simulators run off DLC. That's just the nature of flight simulation. What I want to see is maybe I want to see more completeness of the sim. Even though they're working hard on it, I want to see more completeness of the sim. And if that means that maybe aircraft are coming out as DLC, then fine, but I think nothing else should come out as DLC. We saw that Big Bear airport. That's another DLC that I forgot about. We saw that Big Bear scenery on the Big Bear airport, which was by Turbulent Designs, I think. That was a really good airport, really great scenery, very, very heavy on the frames, except it only works in summer. And that felt like it was a half-baked attempt for me then. You know, why is it only working in summer? That sounds a little bit rubbish. It's only working in summer. There we go, here come the lights. Are the lights backwards here? I have a feeling the lights are backwards. Is that a bug? Yeah, I feel like the lights are backwards and on the wrong side. I don't know. Am I just imagining things? Anyway, we're doing a 95 knots. I think we're coming in at a reasonable speed. I want to try and land this aircraft at 85. We're a little bit too high now. That's fine though. We'll actually bring this aircraft down very, very nicely. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Flight Sim World in 2017. You know, we went quickly over what we saw and what I would like to see in 2018 in the first quarter. Maybe, yeah. Okay, aircraft DLC I can deal with, especially if they're the quality of that Blue Sky one. You're going to see here, see, no lights. You can't see any lights lighting up the runway, which is a little bit of a problem. Definitely, yeah, the Blue Sky DLC I quite liked. It's the... I think if they're that quality, I'll be more than happy to... Yeah, I'll be more than happy to have those sort of... There we go. Nice. That was quite nice. I'd be more than happy to see that sort of setup on the DLC front, on the add-ons front. I suppose we should probably call them add-ons as opposed to DLC. That's what they've been called generally in flight simulators, not really DLC. Let's go off at Hotel 2, I suppose. Let's see if we can take this turning off. There we go. That works quite well for me. A little bit slippery, a little bit slidey. I don't know where we are. Just decided to wander into this airport. I think airports could do with some work, as you can see over here. Just general mesh changes, especially for major airports around the world. I think that could do. Their ATC system. Oh no, let's not go there. Let's just swing around here. ATC system, I think they're working on a brand new ATC system. I would like to see that ATC system, but I don't mind waiting until... for example, I don't mind waiting until summer for that, because I would like to see the core gameplay or the core flying mechanics and dynamics working first. So for example, I want to be able to have night flights where I can actually see the runway when I'm landing. That's going to be really, really important. And yeah, I can see things a little bit better at night than I can at the moment. I want to be able to have the new shaders applied to this, for example. I want to see new shaders applied to the ground textures. I want to see new shaders in general, just like we've got on the aircraft, and I want to see more control over the aircraft and some more, I think, quality control. Quality control on DLC. We saw the quality control on the likes of the Blue Sky and the Just Flight one. That was fantastic. Big Bear, I think it shouldn't have been... I don't think it should have been released if it didn't have winter textures. The fact that it only has summer textures was a huge disappointment to me. I didn't even notice this at the start. I only noticed this a couple of months back. Sorry, about a month back? Yeah, maybe about a month and a half back is when I noticed this, and that was very, very disappointing to me. So, you know, the fact that that's around, that's concerning to me. The other thing is, please, this is now a personal request of mine as I come to the end of this video. When I do that, please don't bring this up. I don't want to see this unless I press maybe the escape key. So I think if I press the escape key, it comes up. That is fine. I don't want to see that when I press the pause key. You know why? Because, look at the snow on the ground. Because when I am in the pause mode, let's say I want to take a photo right there, and I want to pause the sim to take a photo. So I'm going to pause the sim, and it does that. that's no good. Just to get that perfect photo, you know, you might be flying and you might be in the middle of a bank and you want to get a perfect photo and you can't get a perfect photo because every time you press P, it does that. I don't like that. Escape works fine. P, please don't. Please don't. Just have that little, the way Flight Simulator 10 did it, just a little pause button at the bottom that flashes, or pause box at the bottom that just flashes every 3 or 4 seconds. That would be absolutely fine. I think that's something, that's a personal request of mine. But apart from that, you know what, Dovetail have done a decent job. They really have in 2017. Few mistakes, I think, but 2018, let's see what that brings. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more videos on Flight Sim World, leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know what you think. The next video might be on the 31st, or it might be, so would it be on the 31st? Hold on. It might be on the 30th, or if it's not on the 30th, it will be in the new year. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the holiday season. And yeah, I think I'll see you guys next time in Flight Sim World. And if you really like these videos, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. Link to that is in the description box below. Your support would be massively, massively appreciated, and it will help me out a lot to make a career out of this. And plus, I think my microphone's going, so, or at least some parts. It might be the cable, but I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, if some people can support me on Patreon, that I might be able to afford to buy a whole new microphone setup, which would be a disaster if it went, but there we go. Anyway, thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you guys next time in Flight Sim World.